Hello everybody, it has been a while since I made any kind of video on this channel. I knew when I posted my last video at the beginning of the year that I would not be updating this channel as frequently as I had in years previous. However, I was not intending to take as long of a break between videos as I have. I don't have any excuse. It is interesting. It has just been kind of a stressful year. Not always had the time to film, and when I have had the time to film, I have not always had the energy to film. However, I have the time, energy, and desire to film right now, so I'm trying to capitalize on all of those things and make a video. I figured in this video I would just kind of give like a wide shot of the reading year so far and talk about some books I've really loved. I'm not going to go into massive amounts of detail about these books because many of them I read many months ago, and it's difficult for me to remember books in super strong detail months after reading them. I just don't have that good of a memory. But these are books that got to me in some way or another, and I have been thinking about over the past year, and that I've wanted to talk about and not have the opportunity to. So I'm going to talk about those books. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've currently reading, what's going on in the current reading landscape, and then end talking about some things that I'm looking forward to wrapping up the bookish year with, because we're almost to the end of the year, crazy enough. So let's just get started with the meat and potatoes of the video, which is some books I want to talk about. I'm going to start off talking about this one, which is Disgrace by JM Coetzee. This is one of the first novels that I picked up at the beginning of the year. The only thing I knew about this book before diving in was that it was about a white South African professor who has an affair with a student, loses his job, and is subsequently in disgrace. And to be honest, that premise did not appeal to me too much. And the only reason I read this book is because references were made to it in the novel The Friend by Sigrid Nunez, which I read last year and really loved, and so I decided to give it a try. And yes, it is about a white South African professor who has an affair with a student, loses his job, and is subsequently in disgrace, but that is really just the first chapter of the book. The main tension of the book comes later, when in his disgrace he decides to stay with his daughter, who lives in rural South Africa. She's a farmer in rural South Africa. And while he is staying with her, they are attacked viciously by three men. She is sexually assaulted. He is set on fire. They don't know the exact identities of their attackers, but they at least know who their attackers are connected to. He wants his daughter to go to the police for what has happened to them. She does not want to go to the police, and she doesn't want to go to the police because she knows that if she goes to the police about this situation, she will not be able to live the kind of life that she wants to live. She will not be able to live in this farm and stay in this community that she wants to stay in. And this book is a very sharp look at exploitation. It's a sharp look at justice. It is a look at what happens when you live in a community. Something has been horrendously done to you, and there is no real legitimate way that you can seek recourse for what has happened. It is a intelligent, compassionate, and striking look at exploitation and justice in post-apartheid South Africa, and I highly, highly recommend it, and I want to read all of Coetzee's work next. Another book that I absolutely loved is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, and this is about a man named Cyrus. He is in his mid-20s. He lives in Indiana, which is a selling point for me because I live in Indiana and have lived in Indiana my whole life. He is Iranian, and he has just been orphaned. His mother has been dead pretty much his whole life. She was a passenger aboard a passenger flight, an Iranian passenger flight that the United States military shot down, which is a true historical event. So he grows up without his mother. After his mother dies, his father moves him from Iran to Indiana. His father takes on a job on a chicken farm, raises his son. His son goes on to become a poet and graduate from a liberal arts college. But now his father has just died, and Cyrus is a recovering addict. He's coping with the deaths now of both his mother and his father, and he becomes a little bit fixated on the idea of martyrs, particularly because he feels like his parents' death were both so meaningless that he wants to understand what a meaningful death would be, and he wants to write about martyrs. And he hears about a woman at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City who is dying of terminal cancer. She is an artist, and her last exhibition is that she is set up shop at the Metropolitan Museum of Art to talk frankly with visitors about dying and death. And he realizes that this is the perfect person to talk to understand martyrdom, somebody who is actively making something meaningful of their death. And so, yeah, this book is kind of a pilgrimage to go meet this woman, their discussions, and what it reveals about Cyrus's own family and family history and family dramas. And you learn so much more about his parents. And yeah, this book is beautifully written. There's funny things that Kaveh Akbar does as a writer, little interludes of imagined conversations with people. For example, I think there's a conversation in this book between like Shaquille O'Neal and Lisa Simpson or something like that. So like celebrities and stuff. And he's imagining these conversations they might be having about death and martyrdom. It's incredibly intelligent. It's funnier than I thought it would be. It's more emotional than I thought it would be. And the writing is really striking. One of those books where from the very beginning paragraph, I just felt like I was in the hands of a very accomplished master of his craft, and I just can't wait to read more Kaveh Akbar novels. I hope he comes out with more. And it makes me very excited because Kaveh Akbar has a connection to Indiana. He grew up in Indiana. He went to college at Butler. And this is like the second or third novel I've read in recent years that has really blown me away from a writer that has some strong Indiana connection. And Indiana is not, some place known for turning out literary greats, but it has been my home my whole life. And so to see 3 or so great novels coming from folks from Indiana is just really cool. The next book I want to talk about is Pat Barker's The Silence of the Girls. I'm not going to go into massive amounts of detail about this because I think everybody knows what it is about. It is a retelling of the Iliad and the Trojan War, told from the perspective of the women. And to be honest, I read this book quite quickly. I really enjoyed it while I was reading it. However, it has not stuck with me in the same kind of detail as other books. But what I did want to mention about it, and the thing that surprised me about it, is how amazing the writing about war is in this book. This is a screaming rage at war, about its injustice, about its immiseration, about the people who profit from it. And it is beautifully and hauntingly portrayed in this book in ways that I did not expect this book to contain, because I thought this book, when I first heard about it, there's so many of these like Greek retelling books, and some of them just seem a little bit silly, and things I'm just not particularly interested in. This is really meaty, powerful stuff, and maybe has more literary heft than I expected it to, which is really ridiculous to say because like Pat Barker is such an incredible writer in general. So I don't know why I thought that this would be some, kind of frivolous thing. I think I was very much just judging it off of the fact that it was a Greek mythology retelling. But yeah, it's really powerful stuff, and I would really recommend it. I did try to read the Women's Prize for Fiction long list this year, and will fully admit that I was not very successful. I DNF'd most of the books that I picked up off of the long list. It just wasn't really gelling with me this year. However, I did finish 2 of the books on the long list, and I wanted to talk about them because I had very opposite reactions to these books than I expected to. So the one I thought I would absolutely hate, and that is All Fours by Miranda July. I hate this cover. Whenever people talked about the premise, I thought it sounded awful. I'm not a big fan of Miranda July's work in general. I've been aware of her for a while. She's never really spoken to me. This book was so much better than I thought it would be. It is funny, it is surprising, it is emotional. I thought the things that it had to say about desire, women's desire, confronting what happens as people age, was incredibly interesting. Not something that I think of very often. The way it is portrayed on the page is just giddy and just kind of tore my heartstrings at times, and also made me just laugh and be in total shock. She just went places with this novel that I did not expect, and I think it's brilliant, and I want to reread it, and I want to read her previous novel, I don't have a ton to add to the conversation about All Fours that hasn't been said already. It's been a book that has been talked about to death. But yeah, I was totally surprised that I loved this book as much as I did, and in fact, I wanted it to win the prize. I had read E.L. van der Voden's The Safekeep. I think it's a fine book. I didn't love it nearly as much as other people loved it, so I was really rooting for All Fours to win the prize, and I was very glad to see that it got shortlisted. And then the opposite reaction from me was with Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. I really thought I would love this book. I liked the cover, I liked the premise. It was getting rave reviews from people whose opinions I generally trust and agree with. I did not like this book. It's about a woman who is finally decided to leave her husband, who has been abusive to her for many years. And his abuse has been mostly emotional, kind of screaming, yelling type of abuse. He hasn't so far hit her, but that threat of violence has always been there. She's now pregnant with her third child from this man, and she realizes that she just cannot go through another pregnancy and bring up another child with him. This is the moment she has to leave. And so she does, she flees, and the book is kind of about navigating the care systems and the support systems in Ireland to help people in her situation without going back to this man. And you realize, as you read about these systems and how broken they are, just how easy it is for domestic abuse victims to go back to the people who are abusing them. And that is really the strength of this book, is capturing that day-to-day plight. However, I thought the writing in this book was not great. I thought the imagery was really obvious. I thought that the story itself went in places that was rather cliche. It reminded me of like a Hallmark movie, just really rough. And she has an unfortunate habit in this book of mentioning other better writers. And she would mention people like Toni Morrison or Lucia Berlin. And I would just think to myself, I wish you hadn't mentioned them, because now all I'm thinking about is how I would rather be reading a Lucia Berlin story, because at least there would be some decent prose. So yeah, I just really did not like that book. I don't understand why so many people seem to love it. But yeah, was not a fan. Okay, because I just talked about something I really didn't like, I'm now going to jump into something that I absolutely loved to try and balance the tone here. I picked up and read all of Lorie Moore's short story collections this year, and I cannot recommend an author more highly. What I did was that pretty much every day at work, I would read a Lorie Moore story over my lunch break. And it was the best way that I could have possibly spent lunch breaks. Lorie Moore has one of the best writing styles I have come across. She is incredibly sharp. She has a gaze that is just razor focused. And despite the fact that she has all that sharpness, all that crispness in her writing, she's also incredibly compassionate and warm. And the result are stories that just live with me in ways that other short stories don't. My favorite collection is Birds of America. I think probably my favorite story in this collection is a story called Dancer in America, which is about a woman who is a dancer, and what she does is she travels around the country going to schools and teaches the importance of dance, and you're following her as she is come to one small community where she knows somebody that she went to college with, and him and his wife have a child with cystic fibrosis. And the whole story is just about them having dinner together, and her teaching them the importance of dance. And I'm going to find the story, and I'm going to read the very beginning paragraph, because it has one of my favorite opening gambits in a short story. So let me find that real quick. All right, so it starts off with, I tell them dance begins when a moment of hurt combines with a moment of boredom. I tell them it's the body's reaching, bringing air to itself. I tell them that it's the heart's triumph, the victory speech of the feet, the refinement of animal lunge and flight, the purest metaphor of tribe and self. It's life flipping death the bird. I make this stuff up. So it's just this beautiful way of setting up this kind of beautiful, emotive way of looking at dance and the importance of dance, the things that she's selling to these communities, and then her kind of instant undercutting all of those things. And then, as the story goes on, you see that, in fact, dance really is all of those things, and it's really beautiful and really affecting, and the way she pulls off everything in this story is just masterful. I have read it like 4 or 5 times now, and there are several stories in these collections that I have read over and over again. Self Help is her very first collection. She wrote it when she was like in her mid-20s. I can't believe she had so much talent so young. It's insane. And many of these stories are written in the third person, kind of like a self-helpy pamphlet. And one of my favorite stories in this one is called How to Be Another Woman. And it's how to be an other woman, which is a great play on words. And it's about a woman who finds herself having an affair with a married man, and slowly turning into a cliche. And it's just got such great, funny bits of wordplay. Here's a great one. When you were 6, you thought mistress meant to put your shoes on the wrong feet. Now you are older and know it can mean many things, but essentially it means to put your shoes on the wrong feet. Yeah, I'm going to think about that line pretty much every time I come across the word mistress now. So highly, highly recommend all of these. And I cannot wait to read Lorie Moore's novels. I have purchased them all, and I'm planning on reading them before the end of the year. Another writer that I discovered this year that has been a big discovery was Helen Garner. So the first book that I picked up by her was this one called The Spare Room. And this is about a woman named Helen, like the author, Helen Garner, whose friend is dying of terminal cancer. And she has come to stay with Helen for 3 weeks in Melbourne while she has been seeking, this alternative vitamin C therapy at a clinic in Melbourne. And Helen, when her friend is coming, really imagines this almost like Florence Nightingale kind of character of herself, that she's going to really nurse her friend in this tremendously difficult time. She's going to be this incredibly compassionate caretaker. She gets her spare room together for her. She puts all this attention and detail into it. And then her friend comes, and her friend starts going to this alternative therapy. And this alternative therapy is grueling. It's clearly being run by a group of charlatan quack doctors. But her friend has really bought into this therapy. She thinks it's going to save her from this terminal cancer. And Helen just cannot stand to watch how this therapy damages her friend, the physical pain it puts her through. They're really delinquent in their care, the things that they allow to happen. And her friend is just bought into this. And what results, instead of her being this compassionate all the time character, she finds herself in a real power struggle with her friend who's dying. And this book is a really sharp look at this and the rage that Helen feels towards this situation. And I watched plenty of interviews with Helen Garner about this, because Helen Garner wrote this about something that actually happened to her. This is auto-fictional. Her friend really was dying of terminal cancer. Her friend really was seeking out these therapies, and it was really dredging up feelings of rage in Helen. And she, wanted to capture these surprising feelings she had about grief and losing a friend, and what was going on. And yeah, the way she captures this rage is absolutely incredible. The prose in here is so sharp and compassionate and razor-edged. And Helen Garner has an incredible gaze. The way she looks at things, the honesty with which she looks at things, and she's not afraid of turning that inward. And in so doing, she invites you as the reader to draw your gaze inward in ways that I have not experienced with other authors. And I think that's what really excites me as I'm reading her books. This is one of the best I've ever read. After picking up her novel, I moved on to This House of Grief, which is a book of court reportage that Helen Garner wrote about a murder trial in Australia where a man was accused of killing his 3 children by driving them off of an embankment and into a dammed reservoir. He makes it out of the car alive. His three children drown, and he claims that the way he got off on this embankment is because he had a coughing fit that was so severe that he passed out and lost consciousness at the wheel, and that's how this happened. The court presents the case that he did this on purpose. He intentionally killed his children, drove them off of that embankment, and it's an interesting premise, just, trying to understand the guilt or innocence, right? I mean, it's not a clear-cut case of, physical evidence, right? The evidence is really trying to build a story about a person, about the possibility of this type of health episode occurring. And what's really kind of fascinating when you read this book is you can watch how the information really moves, how the pendulum of opinion can swing in a court. She watches the jurors, she watches the witnesses, she remarks on what they find convincing, what they find repulsive, how they flinch, and all of that is incredibly interesting. And it's because of Garner's just incredible gaze and understanding of just human beings, that she can create this incredible images of the court as you're reading. And yeah, I'm not somebody who necessarily loves true crime in general. However, I find something like this to be the kind of, if I'm going to pick up something that's true crime, the kind of true crime I want to read. It has a real literary heft to it, and its writing style and its presentation. It's got a real sense of compassion and care about the victims. That is never lost in this book. The real tragedy at the heart of this book, trying to come to terms with what it means to lose children in this way, what acts of pettiness suddenly result in, irreversible tragedy. And just that is beautifully explored in this book. And I just absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite things I've read all year. And she's written a few other true crime court reportage books, and I want to read those next. I had a few other books that I was going to talk about, but honestly, I think I've rambled on enough about books that I've enjoyed this year. I'm sure I'll have other opportunities to talk about those books. Kind of figured, though, talk a little bit about what the current reading landscape is looking like for me, which is that I have been reading the Booker Prize for Fiction long list. And I've really made my way through the long list quite a bit now at this point. So I have now read or DNF'd 10 of the books. I've finished 8 of them. I DNF'd 2 of them. And I only have 3 more to read now. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to finish The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny by Anita Desai before the shortlist is announced, but I am hoping to have the rest of them read before the shortlist is announced. And that's exciting. I have never done this well at reading a Booker Prize long list before, and I gotta say, it's a pretty bangin' long list. I've given most of the books 4 or 5 stars. A few of them are probably some of my favorite books of the year. And yeah, I might make a whole video about the long list. I'm not sure if I will or not. I feel like there's plenty of Booker content out on YouTube, but who knows? I'll decide that in the coming weeks. But yeah, all I'll say about it in case I do make a video, is that I think my favorite book on the list so far might be Flashlight by Susan Choi. It's really incredible, and it's one of those books that once I started reading it, I just could not put it down. It's one of the longer books on the list, but I absolutely flew through it faster than some of the short books on the list. So yeah, I'm kind of wrapping up Booker Prize books right now. So yeah, after the Booker Prize, I'm not totally sure what's next for me. I do want to pick up some more of those authors that I have got to finish more of their backlist from that I've discovered this year. People like Helen, Garner, Lorie Moore. One thing I'm looking forward to as I get into the latter half of the year is that I want to try and make my way through this big behemoth anthology of short stories, which is a century of fiction in the New Yorker magazine from 1925 to 2025, edited by Deborah Treisman, longtime fiction editor at the New Yorker. And I'm somebody who really likes New Yorker stories. I subscribe to the New Yorker pretty much only so that I can read the short fiction. I listen to all their podcasts about their short fiction. I really like Deborah Treisman's um, editing over there. I feel like she has picked out just bangers after bangers. And yeah, there's a lot of really big authors in this whose work I have not read nearly enough of, or not at all. People like Ben Lerner, Yoon Lee, Zadie Smith, Tessa Hadley, Jennifer Egan. And yeah, I'm just really excited about exploring these stories collected over the New Yorker over past 25 years. It's got some Jhumpa Lahiri, Annie Proulx. It has Lorie Moore. Which Lorie Moore did they choose? They chose People Like That Are the Only People Here, which is a fantastic short story about a couple whose baby has cancer. So yeah, I'm looking forward to making my way through that. Something that I've been flipping through, not necessarily super seriously, but has been kind of fun for me to flip through as a bookish person, is this big behemoth book called 1,000 Books to Read, a life-changing list, 1,000 Books to Read Before You Die, a life-changing list by James Mustick, not sure how you say his last name. I randomly picked this book up when I saw it. It just seemed like a really fun, almost like coffee table book to have. And it is exactly what it says on the cover. It's 1,000 Books to Read Before You Die. It all has this big text with each book to kind of talk about some important context about the book, that type of thing. And it is because I was flipping through this book that I picked up Helen Garner's The Spare Room, because that was a book that was listed, and its description and analysis of the book made me want to read it. So, yeah, I think I'm going to continue flipping through this and seeing what surprises might be in here. Also, I'm thinking in December, I'm going to try and celebrate the reading year by doing something I don't often let myself do, and that is I am going to do like a month of rereading books. I used to be somebody who reread a lot, and I have gotten out of the habit of doing so as I've gotten older. I think because I'm just constantly drawn to the shiny new books, and I don't go back and reread. And there are several books that I have loved over the years that I have only read once. Things like The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton or Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. Books where I read them and felt the way I did like when I was a child and was reading, where the whole world dissolved and went away around me and it was just me and the world of the book. That kind of joyous reading experience. And I've not allowed myself to revisit them, so I'm thinking I'm going to have a whole month of rereading in December. So yeah, that's kind of what I've got going on. I hope your guys' reading year has been good. I would love to hear what your favorite books have been so far, if there's anything you're looking forward to getting to before the year ends. If you are doing any type of fall spooky reading, I'd like to hear about that. I would like to do some fall spooky reading, so if you have any spooky recommendations, please let me know. I'm thinking I might pick up some classic spooky reads, which I shamefully haven't read yet, things like Dracula and Frankenstein. So yeah, I think that's all for me. I hope you guys are doing well. I'll see you in the next video, and I promise it won't be 8 months from now. Bye!